So welcome everybody, and really it's good seeing everybody here, and thank you for being here. What I'm going to do today is, and before I go any further, I know there are lots of spouses and partners here. I just want to let you know how impressed I am with your partners who are in the executive MBA program. You know, this is such a tough program. What I do in one semester in New Jersey is done in 1 week here. You know, so in my book, there are 11 chapters. On Sunday, we pretty much finished six. Then all the ambulances came and took us to the hospital, you know. And so I take my hat off to them, and then they go to work after that, and then they do well in the exam and do homework. So I just wanted to let you know how impressed I've always been with the students in this program. Okay, so thanks for being here today. And I want to thank, also want to thank President Donald Trump, because thanks to him, my business is better, you know. Economists are really, like in the old days when I would do a blog, a few hundred people would read it. Now it's thousands, you know, so I just want to say thank you. Just keep tweeting. Don't do anything, just tweet, you know. You know, really, it's almost like when a Twilight Zone episode in macro, and I'll wake up and I'll go, oh man, that was weird. I'm glad it was all a dream, but it's not. And so I'm going to take you into it today. This is the nuclear macro syndrome. And what we do today probably will have to be completely thrown away by 9 o'clock, because President Trump will be waking up then, and he'll send a tweet and everything will change after that. So you might as well just stay here, Wendy, and just go through this on and on and on. Okay, so I'm going to start with a historical background. You can hear me in the back, all right? And Laura, everything's working with, so I want to welcome everybody online, live streaming, wherever you are, in New Jersey, and people in France. My students have been teaching their, and in Iceland. I hope you're not awake there now, but nevertheless. So good to see you all, or good to know that you're there listening, watching this. So we're going to start with a historical background about what would happen if China goes macro-nuclear. And I invented that phrase. I should patent $75. I should patent, copyright that right away. So macro-nuclear, and you know the scenario, what if China does not buy or recycle our treasuries? So let's talk about that. And there we go. Is this any better? Okay, so let's just go very simply. I'm going to go with a historical overview. Then we're going to go into the power. We'll use the whiteboards. We'll do some economics. And I indulge you to kind of stay with me here, because some of you know the economics. They've done it with me. I'm hoping you know the economics because we've done it. I don't know if Wendy mentioned there'll be a small exam when this is over. You know, and then we can again after that. And so then I'll go deep into the economics, and then we'll come back to the main issue with that, what happens if China doesn't recycle its money. So that's the roadmap, a historic, deep into the economics. I want to explain to you what tariffs are, how they work, give you numbers, but again, sticking with the no unnecessary math, no unnecessary detail that is not really relevant to you, okay? And on my blog site, which you will get, which will be posted sometime, there's a whole bunch of video blogs explaining much of what I've said here today. All right, so what we have very simply is that America buys electronics goods, leather goods, shoes, clothing from China. China gets green pieces of paper from America, and has been. And China then recycles those green pieces of paper back into the country. So China lends to Uncle Sam, buys treasury bonds, which are government bonds, and so the cycle has been continuing. You know, and so before the subprime crisis in 2008, China was recycling about $2.9 billion every afternoon. So they're buying US government bonds, housing, mortgage-backed securities. After the housing crisis, it's been almost $6 to $9 billion every day. So the money has been flowing back and forth. And when you go to China, when I was teaching in China, the Chinese would say, Professor, there are no two countries. You've heard me say this before. It's Chimerica. We are one country. If you go, we go. If we go, you go. So you need us, we need you. We buy stuff from you, or you buy stuff from us. We take your green pieces of paper, and keep in mind, most countries cannot do this. This is very important. Only America can get by with giving green pieces of paper which are backed by nothing, not backed by gold, not backed by anything. Am I still on the screen? So you better stay here, Laura, because I like to move in because they can't hear me in the back, okay? So if you don't mind. And so basically what you have here is China has been recycling the money for a long time now. And let me give you some history here. This all began in 1980. So in 1980, what happened is the Reagan administration allowed the OPEC countries, we are buying oil from the OPEC countries, they were getting green pieces of paper. Again, the US is one country that can do this. Most countries cannot pull this off. Green pieces of paper backed by nothing. Singapore could do this. The Eurozone can do this. Switzerland can do this. Not too many countries can pull this off. So in the 1980s, the OPEC countries were selling us oil, and we were giving them green pieces of paper. And they were, you know, what are we going to do with these green pieces of paper? How many F-4 Phantom fighters can we buy? How many F-16s? How many M1 Abrams? The M1 Abrams, by the way, has been there since 1970s. It's an old main battle tank. We need to replace it. Anyway, so how many can we buy? And so the Reagan administration said, fine. You know what you can do? You can buy treasury bonds. And that's when it began. And that was a really good deal all around. Because remember, folks, even with our problems, thanks, Laura. It's good now. So even with our problems, the treasury bond is the safest investment on the planet. Right now, it still is. And if you remember your finance models, the CAPM model, the risk-free rate, that's the rate on the treasuries. And so it began with the OPEC countries, and then it moved on to China. And so it's really a benevolent recycling. It's called the national savings identity. And so the Chinese would get the safest investment, we would get the money back. And the question is, how long can this go on? So I'll take you there later on. But before that, I want to go back in history to the 1840s. And there was another country that basically did the same thing. Okay, Laura, you can sit down now. Thank you. And so it's another country, the English, who kind of did something like this, but it was a malevolent kind of recycling. So our recycling was a benevolent kind. You know, you came back and you got treasuries, the safest investment on the planet. What happened in the 1840s was the British were buying ceramics, silk, tea from China. China was getting pounds. Pounds, which at that time were backed by silver, so they had even more stuff loaded on them. The Brits couldn't figure out how to get the pounds back. So what happened? Opium. So the Brits got the Chinese hooked on opium. There was a big opium trade that was developed. And the whole east coast of China was horribly hooked on opium. And the Empress actually wrote to Queen Victoria. And she said, please, one lady to another, or one queen to another, please stop this. Queen Victoria tossed it. She ignored it. And then time went by, it got worse and worse. And then the Chinese basically tried to block the opium. And they destroyed some warehouses where there was opium. And there was retaliation. It took a year for the Brits to retaliate. And the Opium Wars happened. And so so what you have, remember, before the Opium War, China's GDP was 50% that of planet Earth, 50. If you added China and India's GDP before colonialization, it was 70% before the Opium Wars. So when people say, you know, reporters say, Professor, where did China come from? I mean, where did they come from? I said, they were always there. They were there for 3,000 years. The China went to sleep for 175 years, 200 years. Bad things happened to it. And then it woke up in 1979 when a really smart team of Deng Xiaoping, Zhu Rongji, Jiang Zemin basically ran the shop. Zhu Rongji, one of my heroes, he ran the macro shop. China got lucky. So when reporters say, where did they come from? I'm going, they were always there. They're probably wondering, where did we come from? So if you don't know your history, I tell reporters, if you don't know your history, don't talk to me. If you don't know your history, you're wasting your time. If you don't know your history, more important, you're wasting my time. And so what happened is the Opium Wars happened, and Hong Kong, again in the news. So it goes way back, that whole drama with Hong Kong. So the Brits got Hong Kong, 99 years. They got concession to trade, and they got $21 million fine. 6 million had to be paid right on the spot. And then the old summer palace was destroyed. And so this was the only time. I'm just trying to show you now why China is so paranoid, why China sounds so xenophobic. Once you understand your history, it makes complete sense. So that's why I'm giving you all this history. So what you have here is, what you have here is the old summer palace, and most people have not even, everyone goes to the new summer palace. How many have you been to the old summer palace? Thank you. So no one goes there. It was huge. It was 5 times as large as Forbidden City. You've all been to Forbidden City, right? It goes on and on and on. Temple of Heavenly Peace, Temple of Super Heavenly Peace, Temple of Peaceful Heaven, Temple of another Temple of Peaceful, and Temple of Mind and Nice Heaven. Goes on and on, right? 5 times bigger than that. And it had pagodas. There were lakes. And so they ripped it down. Then they pulled it down and burnt it down. It took 3 days to burn. And so what happens, and it was what happened is Lord Elgin, the Elgin marbles, the marbles stolen from the Acropolis, from the Parthenon, with the British Museum, the whole drama with that, right? So Lord Elgin basically took all the looted stuff and they had an auction. So even today, stuff from the old Summer Palace is in many English homes today. 3 days to burn. And so every school kid in Beijing does a class trip to the old Summer Palace, where they see the ruins. I just want you to understand where all this is coming from. They see the ruins and they see the only time in human history that the Westerners got together. The Brits, the Germans, the Italians, the Turks were in there. Everyone was in there, all united and ripped down the place. And so every school kid goes there. My mother had a Greek executive MBA, and he said, Farooq, school trip, we go to the Acropolis, where they tell us how the Greek soldier, when he was told by the German stormtroopers to take down the flag and put up the German flag, how the Greeks guard wrapped the Greek flag around him and jumped off the cliff and killed himself. So all of, that's what we go to see. Those were the school trips these people have. And I was thinking, man, I didn't get any school trip like that. I went to the Coca-Cola factory. Completely useless, but anyway. And so what I'm saying is that these things define national thinking. These trips, these kind of visits, and these kind of memories and this kind of history defines your DNA. So this is where China is coming from. This is where the xenophobia, which we perceive as xenophobia, comes from. There's a good reason for it. Okay, so here we are. So let's see now, how long can this recycling go on? I've just set the stage. Okay, so here we go. So here we go. China recycles capital back into US. And so this is the money they get from the deficit, they park it right back, and how on. And please note, in the executive, when I teach, there's no PowerPoint. And I'm also telling the professors who teach in this class, cut back on PowerPoint. And in fact, in the Singapore program, if the students choose the right elective, there is a professor called Jim Smith who will just do nothing but executive presentations. You had him? You guys are lucky. You guys have him more than New Jersey people have him. Took me 10 years to find this guy. Comes from Philadelphia, and he's the guy. I sat down in my office, and in 2 minutes, he was telling me what he would do for presentation skills and written communication. And I said, I stopped him. Stop. You are it. It's the guy next to you in the plane. In 2 minutes, you want to speak to the guy next to you in the plane. You just know. You know whether you should fake reading a magazine or feel like asleep, or you're gonna talk, right? So anyway. So let's PowerPoint. How long can this go on? And so as long as G minus T divided by GDP is less than 5%, so G minus government spending, T is tax revenues. So you guys tell me, G minus T greater than 0 is what? Is a budget deficit. So typically, back in the day, as long as for a mature economy, as long as the budget deficit divided by 5%, then the deficits could be sustainable. What does that mean in plain English? Anyone? You now is I'm just giving you a preview. I'm just saying, what if the Chinese stop sending money back to America? What will happen to the US budget deficits? What does that have to do with sustainability, especially when President Trump has got this notion that deficits don't matter anymore? And what has happened, and this is scary, and I'm going online with this, is that quite a few of the big engine rooms, quite a few of the real economists on the team there are gone. So there are not many hardcore economists left on his team. So there are people out there saying, oh, deficits don't matter. You can spend as much as you like. You can just print money. And causes night. I don't sleep well anyway. At all. So here we are. What does it mean by sustainable? Come on. It means there are people from my class right now, and tomorrow's an exam, so I'm hoping they know the answer, right? You're just being shy tonight. Exactly. Did you hear her? So thank you. Sustainable means, and she's in my class and she's got an exam tomorrow and looks like she's ready for the exam tomorrow. And so sustainable means you can keep borrowing forever and ever and ever. As long as you're under 5%, if let's say I'm borrowing from the Italians here and for a year, and in the next year I need to borrow from the Germans here, then that's fine, I can do it. Next year I need to borrow from the French, I can do it from the Indians. I can keep rolling it forever and ever and ever. That's what sustainable means. Over 5%, it is non-sustainable. So US deficit, by the way, is around 4.8% right now. Okay, so let me take you there. So greater than 5%, it's non-sustainable. What does non-sustainable mean? Come on, folks. Anyone? So what you have, yeah. So those of you who are just joining us, I should probably explain. I have a problem saying no. So when you hear a long yeah, it means no. It's very confusing when people ask for my admission. Do I have admission in the program? And I go, yeah. Actually, it means no. So it's a psychological thing, I guess. So, yeah. What's that? Yeah. So you're there. So basically, it, it, exactly. So you can't roll it over anymore. People will stop lending you money. A non-sustainable deficit means the rest of the world will say, hey, what the heck's going on? No, I'm not buying any American government bonds or any other whichever the country may be. It becomes non-sustainable. And when that happens, all the red lights go on and you start printing money. The government has to print money. And the results are devastating. Zimbabwe, hyperinflation, and hyperinflation is irreversible. Zimbabwe has now lost 4% of its high skilled labor. Zimbabwe, who looks like you in terms of labor skills, is gone. Many here in Singapore. German hyperinflation after World War I, massive. Venezuela, Mexico, what's, sorry? Oh, did I hear something? What came from the machine? Yeah, okay. And so please note, yeah, so basically hyperinflation, devastation, and you never forget that. So here we are, 5%. So the Reagan administration, it became 6.1%. And all the red lights went off, came on, and we flipped out, and we basically brought the deficit down. It was called Graham-Rudman budget amendment. So we just decreased everything brutally by 5%, 5%, whatever, and we brought the deficit down. It was like 6.1% in the Reagan years. So then in the subprime crisis, and some of you just heard this story, 2010 in the subprime crisis, I'm teaching in Shanghai. And I'm in class started at 7. And so class was near Xintian, right next to it. What a location that was. And so here I am in Xintiandi, and I get a message from my European bank spies. See, I have spies. This is all being live streamed. Okay, I just blew the cover of all my spies, I guess, in the European Central Bank and other banks. So I hear news before you hear the news. I'm like a macro Dr. No, you know, kind of, I think. And so I heard from this guy who said, Brooke, did you know your deficit GDP ratio is going to be 12%? 12. I said, no. You mean debt. Okay, now keep in mind, debt and deficit are different things. Deficit is G minus T for 1 year. Debt is all the lending you have done from today to minus infinity. Okay, so debt is cumulative, everything. Deficit is 1 year. So he said, no, deficit, 12%. Remember, 6.1 was the highest, 12. That is just incomprehensible. And I'll never forget that. And here I was in Xintiandi, and I said, okay, it's over. What is the point of even having class? Seriously, I was a completely despondent, you know. And I remember there's a taxi stand in Xintiandi, right? So I said, let me just jump in front of a taxi and end this. And then, as I told you guys, and many of you remember the story, I had one of my best moments. There was a Starbucks there, and I thought, okay, let me have one last latte. You know, this is over. And as I was walking to the Starbucks, I came up with my best theory, is that here it is. So I said, wait. Where will the money go? This is 2010. Hello? And so here we are, here comes the cave theory. The cave theory is very important for what is coming if China does not send the money back. So all this has a meaning, by the way. I'm not just kind of rambling on with stories, okay? It's all going to tie together beautifully. So the cave theory is when America falls sick, Americans hide in their cave. They buy nothing, they hunker down. When that happens, the Asians get sick. So the Asians hide in their Asian cave. They hunker down, nothing's happening. By then, it's got the Europeans. The Europeans get sick, the Europeans are in their cave. And we keep forgetting the Aussies. I guess Aussies are in some cave too. It doesn't matter. And so everyone's in the cave. When everyone's in their caves, we Americans have the best cave. When the whole world is shrouded in darkness, this is the safest place to be. Safest harbor in a storm when storms are all over. So me and 2 other people in 2010 said, wait, this is not the end of the world. It's a whole different ball game. Dollar's actually going to get strong. You know, everyone was like, oh my God, this is non-sustainable. Capital is going to flow out. This is hyperinflation. This is Weimar Republic. This is going to be a Zimbabwe of United States. And I said, no. We're going to see the dollar get stronger. We're going to see capital flowing in like we've never seen before. And only 3 people said that. Me, my dad, bless his heart, because he agrees with me. And thank you, George Soros. So only three guys. And George Soros at that time was an evil genius. Now, as he's grown older, he's changed. He funds monasteries and he prays every day, and he translates monk stuff for the monks. So he's changing. But George Soros, and sure enough, capital flowed into the US. The dollar got strong. It was scale theory. And this happened every time there's a crisis, money flows in. And so here we are. The theory says 5%. There is another shadow theory that says if the whole planet is in trouble, nobody knows. The US will be able to survive again. So this was a macroeconomic miracle that nobody talks about. It was a macro miracle. We dodged a bullet. But the downside of this is we are having this bizarre theory now. We are having some of the contenders for president saying, well, deficits don't matter. See, we were at 12% and the sky didn't fall on. We can fund these green jobs, print money. Nothing happens. Gosh, my gosh. I said, you need to get on your knees and say thank you. You dodged the bullet once. You can't take that as a policy prescription. Granted. And so store this away. This is the backdrop. So because we kind of need the Chinese capital flowing back. All right. So that's the backdrop where we are. We dodged a bullet. Technically, so my Greeks say, I got so many Greeks in my class there, and it's hard. They're so emotional. What the heck? If you were Greece, you would have blown apart a long time ago. You're the only country that rank out green pieces of paper and people will take it, man. What the heck is this? And there's the exorbitant privilege that America has. It's a phrase from the 60s or 70s, I can't remember. So the rest of the world is like, yeah, you guys can do this. If we were anywhere close, we would be basket cases. If you how annoying that is, very annoying. Take advice from the IMF. Okay, so that's the backdrop. Now let's see the tariff wars and see where. And then back to and further. Yeah, please. Sorry. Will one day be? Though the greenback. The question is yuan be point in time? Who knows though? Because China in the last few crises actually has been labeled as a safe haven. Capital flowed not just to Singapore and the US, but it flew to China and to India in the last Asian crisis. So, and keep in mind, China has been run by a really good macro team. Zhu Rongji, who I adore, the guy was brilliant. Then Dai Long, who came after him, running the People's Bank of China, and he is Zhu Rongji's student. Then Zhu Xiaochuan now, and he's kind of pushed aside, but technically he's still there. These three were actually proteges of Zhu Rongji. Zhu Rongji is a guy who wrote a paper on macro when he was 16. He studied Lincoln's speeches. He studied as a kid, he read the Chinese classics. His mom and dad died when he was little. His uncle brought him. He'd go to the antique market and read the Chinese classics. This is like a Leonardo da Vinci guy. China got super lucky. The Asian crisis would have been, China got super lucky. And you guys here got super lucky with my second hero, Dr. Richard Hu. Many Singaporeans go Hu and I go Yahoo. He was in charge of the MAS, brilliant guy. So those two guys, amazing, amazing. And so the question is, it's already a safe haven. Thing is, it has to be fully liberalized. It's not fully liberalized. Chinese government should allow capital to flow back and forth freely if it wants to be a truly global currency. And remember, folks, for a country to be a global currency, you can't manage it or announce it. The world should say, okay, we are safe. We feel safe holding you as reserve currency. We feel safe parking our money in you. That's organic. It's endogenous. That's the word we use here. So remember, a global country global foreign exchange status is not managed or attained. It's given by everyone else, So let the world take its time. China has to play it right, though. This new team is not a Zhurongji team, okay? So this new team, these are new guys. They're not connected to the great man. And there are a few awkward moments. Zhurongji was smooth. It was like a textbook. So there's a little new team and transition team here. So let's see how that works out. Okay, let me take you into any other questions, folks? Anything else? Or let's do some back. So what diagram, if you've done this in the past. So here we are. This is USA, let's say, and here is China sitting down here. And here we have, this is steel, aluminum, consumer products, whatever you like, solar panels, tires, whatever. So here's demand, here is supply, this is the American diagram, and here is price, equilibrium price. It's too high. Okay, those of you in my class on, I'm glad you are here, but for those who are not here, maybe in a lunchtime I'll do this because everybody needs to know. I know some of you couldn't make it, you're working tonight. So this price, here's the price at home, and here is the world price coming from China. So this is P China. So the China is more efficiently. So the Chinese price is lower than the American price for making steel at home. You see in the back, is that too low? Steel at home, aluminum, consumer, solar panels, whatever. So from here to here, here to here, 0 to S1. So 0 to S1 is made in USA. You can see, folks, from here to here, the line lower than the orange line. So Americans, can make it cheaper at home. So here to here is domestic supply. Here to here, D0 is demand. And can you tell me, folks, what this gap is? From S0 to D0. So here is domestic supply at this orange price. Here to here is domestic demand price. So this gap is imports. And here comes Trump, who one fine day started a trade war. It just came out of nowhere without much. Says, okay, China is, let's say, $7. Just make is 7. And so slapping a tariff, I want to protect domestic producers. China ripping us off, all that usual drama. Put in a. And so here is the P China plus tariff. And so here it's called this 10. And look at this, folks. And D1. So you guys clear this board. What is happening? This is America now. And here is China sitting on the side. So look at this diagram while I clear this board. What's happening in there? Who is happy? Who is not? What's going on? Consumers, yeah, look at this. So what you have for the US, we have the prices have gone up to 10. So for US, prices equal to 10. Okay, let me now give you one of my quotes. Well, you know what? Then don't buy steel from China. Buy American steel. If you think the Chinese steel is 10, buy American steel. Don't buy solar cells from China. Buy American solar cells. How would you respond to that? So the answer is, anyone? Please note, folks, this is a big takeaway right now. Most people don't understand this. All don't buy an imported SUV from Japan because there's 25% tax. All you Americans here, if you bought an SUV from Japan, 5%. By the way, FYI. In your invoice, don't say tariff. There'll be some euphemism. Charge, currency adjustment, port clearance certification. Okay, and so please note, first takeaway, all prices go up. Because if imported prices go up, everybody buys domestic, and within seconds, whoop, those prices will go up. Excess demand will make them, they'll be the same. So all up. You can an SUV, it'll also go up. So here we are, so all prices go up. Prices for the tariffed item. Okay, second observation. So this is observation. So who's happy here? Who is tearing open the champagne and who is rejoicing? President Trump. You're the guy. You're the guy. What? Exactly. Look at that. Domestic has gone up. Steel mills have opened. They're actually increasing some of the pension. Now, what's interesting is they interviewed steel workers, and the steel workers, we are still the same. We've seen zero. The boss is making the money. And so, hello, that's all I have to say. Hello. So here we are. So domestic production has increased. Domestic producers, not necessarily the workers, domestic producers are happy. Production has increased. Production has increased. As well, folks, what's happened to domestic demand for steel, aluminum, SUVs? Steel goes up, cars go up, houses go up in prices, furniture goes up, has gone down. From D0 to D1, consumption has gone down. So here we are, domestic consumption has gone down. And number 4, imports from China. Imports of tariffed item, what might be there? Frankly, I don't even know which ones are tariffed because it changes 3 times a day. Consumer goods, no consumer goods, then Apple parts, imports of tariffed item. Here's a takeaway. Who gets $10? Does China actually get? So we're paying with China. We have a tariff on Chinese goods. Does China at least get that? Would China be happy with that? China still gets 7. Mom and pop America don't understand that. You have business reporters. Well, we're going to stop. So they'll be paying, right? With I used to have a who ISLM, all this technical stuff, and then he'd disappear and write this amazing article. And then he disappeared. I don't know what happened. I think they got him. Something happened. Poor guy. Anyway, so that China still gets 10. Please understand, China does not get 7. Thank you. China still gets 7. Folks, the tariff, fewer items being bought by the other guy. Who pays the? We. You and I pay the 10. So consumers of the imported country pay the 10. China does not get the 10. Remember that. We pay the 10. We, the poor consumers, poor consumers pay the 10. His thinks he can to try and decrease the budget deficit. We're going to get money from tax revenues. That should shrink all the big time deficit. He's given tax cuts to the corporations, tax cuts to the billionaires. And so there's going to be and this is what the plan is, that these tax revenues from you and I, the tariff, will go help decrease the deficit. So store that away. So China is like, oh, what happens is, please note, this is a partial equilibrium story, only part of the story. See what China retaliation. Erase this. So here is China, and here we go. So here is US exports agriculture. China then says, all right, fine, two can play the game. So we're going to hammer agriculture, soybeans and pork, corn. So, the reporters go, they're very smart people, Chinese. They know Trump's base, and they're going after Trump's base. I'm going, no, maybe, but no. Can you tell me why? What? Yeah, you're there. Remember, the 70% of global trade, please note, are large ticket items, aircraft engines, Boeing 737s, iPhones, made by 30, 40 different countries, 600, 800 contractors. There are very few all American products. And those are soybeans, pork. You only one country can make one pig, right? Right? And so please note that, so this is one reason why they're hammering agriculture. This is really one of the few all-American products. Jack Daniels, but they kind of need that to be kept low, and Boeing, well, Boeing's got other problems. The tariff is not, anyway, so here we are. So this is China's story. So here's a PW plus tariff. And look at this. Here we are. So the other story, soybeans are now lying there rotting. 2 years, soybeans are rotting. Farmers in the Midwest are suffering. Governors of the Midwest states, Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and so on, they are like stressed because what's happened is, look at this. If China is only importing that much from the US, here's another important takeaway. Supply chains will change. People don't understand that. There will be country C will suddenly show up, and why do you think our Brian is in such a good mood, are Canadians? Canadians are in a very good mood. China said, fine, we'll go to Canada. And Canada's agricultural exports are up 35%. And Canada is the only country on the planet that's not changing any macro policy. They're like, we're fine. Not raising interest rates, not devaluing, not changing government spending. No, we're fine. They're getting all the smart people moving up to Vancouver. The new Silicon Valley is going to be up there. because America is shutting H-1B visas are cut back, and plus, who wants the hassle? So what you have here is country C will show up, and Trump does not understand this. You know, this is very important point. On my YouTube, I have a blog site, Wendy, my blog site. So walk around, I've got a whole video on this from me. This is very important point. The point here is that even when the trade war is over, supply chains will not go back. You have to understand this. Trump does not understand that. Let me give you examples. The Indian tea, which was really actually disappointing to me, that I always thought we Indians, I'm from Mumbai, Bombay originally, we thought chai, tea came from us. And so whenever I'd go to England and they would say, would you like some English breakfast? United Airlines, English breakfast tea, and I would feel like having an argument every time. It is not English breakfast, you know. But after 9/11, you don't want to argue with flight attendants, you know. So you just shut up and take a hand. Tell my wife, oh no, my wife would go, just don't start that again. Just shut up, you know. And so English, and I was thinking, turns out tea comes from England. What happened? Again, the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars keep showing up. So the Opium Wars happened, and the Brits said, you know, we got to have a plan B. Our tea is gone. So they kidnapped 4 tea workers from God knows where in China, and they shipped off to Assam with a bunch of tea roots or plants or whatever. And somehow they got a little plantation going in Assam from Chinese tea. And then more tea came to India, thanks to those Opium Wars. And tea never left India. So this is how tea became an Indian thing from the trade, the Opium War. Egyptian cotton, same thing. You know, the Civil War, the Confederacy had an embargo on the southern ports. So the southern cotton could not leave. And so again, the Brits said, okay, we need cotton. Let's see, what do we own? Is Egypt ours? Yeah. Is India, Egypt is ours? Is it? Yeah, Egypt is ours. Okay. Plant cotton there. Conditions, and so Egyptian cotton. And it never went back. And so Trump doesn't understand that once this trade war is over, and one hopes it will eventually be over, it may not go back. You know, those farmers will lose, agriculture will lose, supply chains will change. You know, he thinks that this dispute like at Mar-a-Lago, you know, where he kind of bullies the electricians union or the plumbers union, you know, has a fight with the guys who are laying cable in Mar-a-Lago, whatever. And then the fight's over and they kind of make up and he goes, come here, everybody, great guy, and make up. And everybody goes, oh, China, you don't make up. China has lost face. He does not get that. And he doesn't understand that Xi Jinping has a tough balancing act to follow. Don't forget that even if it's a one-party system, there are people in his party who are accusing him of being too lenient, not hard enough, not hard with so many, you know, there are diehards, there are hotheads like we have, like you have. And there are liberals and moderates. So he's got his own balancing act, you know, and he has lost face. And if you don't understand that, there is a problem. This is not going away. So China has lost face. China is not getting the money from this thing. Other countries are lighting up. Supply chains are changing, and once they change, they will not go back. And yes, some manufacturing has left China for Vietnam. But again, quite a bit is actually being transshipped through Vietnam from China, a large number. And again, please note, it's not that you take a product and move it anymore. Today, it's not one product versus another product. Today, it's one supply chain versus another supply chain. And some supply chains are huge, and they are baked in to China. So moving them is going to be hard. Having said that, the author of, my co-author of my 5th book, a guy called Peter Murphy, and I hope he's watching, he's the CEO of a company that builds safety kits for high-performance cars. He's based in Long Island, and he flies to China every week. Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, he's in China. He flies back to Long Island every weekend. And he said, Farouk, here is the big difference. Yeah, some things you can't move from China. Some things you're moving to Vietnam. But what Trump has done for better or worse, is when you're thinking ahead, where are we going to outsource or offshore? Should it be Vietnam? Should it be Cambodia, Malaysia, China? You don't think of China now. You think, if looking forward, you're thinking, do we want to get into that mess? Is that mess going to be over? And so he said, that's going to be the difference. Moving forward, the China option is not as good. Because if you're choosing China as your future destination for offshoring, be prepared for a lot of nightmares and a lot of hassle. So you might as well go to somebody who's maybe not as efficient, but without the tariff hassle. Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, India, who knows? So that's one pointer. Okay, so here we are. Xi Jinping has lost face. Here's this thing. And let's see now what would happen if somehow, in other words, 11, 12, and on steel, and on aluminum, and then on consumer products, not before Christmas. And what is that? Then Valentine's Day is coming. Oh, then tires. And so finally, what happens if China loses enough face and decides to not throw the money? Let me give you some more information. 60 prior to this session here, and all of you been in my class, happened. China would never think about not coming. China would never think about not recycling. Why? 65% of all the money China has made since Deng Xiaoping opened the door in 1979 is parked in dollars. Okay, right now China owns 1.2 trillion in treasuries. 1.2 trillion, that's only 5% of the treasuries outstanding. America has been borrowing like crazy. But nevertheless, it's 1.2 trillion coming due in the next 12 months. And they've done well. The yield on the 1.2 trillion has been 3.4%. So yeah, average yield. So they've done well with those. So back in the day, I would say China will always send it back, man. Come on, China-America, 65%. If they go, we go. But you know what? This is a desperation move. This is a move. What happens if irrational behavior takes hold? What happens if the loss of face is too much? What happens if by that time, China and US trade has gone down and down and down? Trade is shrinking. What happens then? So let's look at what might happen. Sorry. There we go. How long do I have, Wendy? 5 minutes? Till 9 o'clock, and then I saw we have a time limit here. At lunch today in 1 a.m. What's the mall? 1,000 a.m. 100 buffet, all you can eat, 35 Singapore dollars. Then there was a sign, only 50 minutes. There's a time limit. I've never seen that before. I can see people choking to that, I looked in, there was a little kid eating chopsticks and people just falling. It's too stressful for me, 50, watching the time clock. Entrepreneur, I would have a stomach upset booth right outside. Make some money. So this is another half an hour, I'm going to pack it in. Let's look. And both are very interesting. And the weird thing is, folks, when I first wondered about this, I thought, nah, this can never happen. Come on. And I put around on the internet, and you would not believe it's being discussed at the highest level. This is being discussed by the Chinese government. Wow. Especially pessimistic. This is actually being tossed around, So here we are. Here we go. This is demand on this side, and this is loanable funds on this side, on this axis. So let me just kind of explain the diagram. Very simple. Is all this familiar? That's what they say. Can they say no? Of course not. With an exam tomorrow, whoa, only I'm allowed to do that. You know, I've copywritten that. 75 bucks cost me 75 bucks and 1 hour's work to own that. That's how efficient America is. But I lost. Welcome to the powerhouse. Houston, awful. This is better, right? We own that here. So here we are, folks. Here we go. And for loanable funds. And here's the interest rate. So you guys tell me, interest rate is 6%, like that. Interest rate's 2%. Can you give me some intuition here as to why this demand for loanable funds is downward sloping? Just plain English, because I know some people are seeing this for the first time. I just want to make sure you're all with me. Yes. As interest rate falls, simply it's cheaper to borrow. The demand for borrowing at 6% was that much. As interest rates fall to 2%, it's that much. So it's all, there's nothing preposterous here. As interest rates fall, demand for borrowing increases. All right, here we go. And here is supply. And this is I0. Okay, tell me why the supply of loanable funds is upward sloping. Interest rates, 1% and 8%. Come on, folks. So as interest rates increase, why is the supply of loanable funds upward sloping? What's that? Yeah. Come on, what? Come on, Kim. What? Sorry, I can't hear you. So basically all I'm saying here is that 1%, you will put that much in a savings account. At 8%, you just put more in a savings account. You know, I mean, so as higher the interest rate, that's all we're saying here. And yeah, you're right. So as higher the interest rate, the greater the savings. So that's all. So you superimpose the two in the US market. And so China has been plowing money in here. So there are two cases. Case one, we reach a situation, China stops recycling its money. Recycling in quotes, dollars back into the US. And by the way, like I said, 65% of all the money they've made is in dollars, and China used to have 3 trillion. Now it's maybe, no one really knows, 1.72 trillion. And China is sitting on a large portion of dollars. So God forbid the Chinese currency someday to fall and the currency to collapse. China has got a horse full of dollars, which they would dollars buy back their currency and artificially 3 or 4, I think. Hong Kong has got a huge stash of dollars. And so when the collapsed in the Asian crisis, 97, Hong Kong's currency was not allowed to a portion of its brought back its currency. God, we wasted a large number of dollars just to keep our currency strong because you bleed change. So that's why China have huge recycling dollars, but they're sitting on. Okay, Xi Jinping's had enough. He's lost face. The problems at home. They're saying not being too hard. China slowing. New when there was the other problem. It began with unemployment from college kids and a high inflation. So he's had it. So here we go, plowing back in, and we have situation one outflow. So here we go. I spike. Here we are. This is the nightmare scenario. Case one. So China coming in. Shuts down the supply of loanable funds. Please note this past when we, to a smaller extent, like sells F-16s or F-18s or whatever to Taiwan for a few days. China sulks. Chinese don't show up at treasury auctions, and they don't buy. And the Wall Street Journal goes, "Oh, Chinese have stopped coming," and I'm going, "No, they'll be back 65%. Chimerica." And after 2 Chinese are back at auctions. But this is for real. What happens? Interest rate spike. What happens to US dollar? Peaking dollars and getting out. Collapses. As interest rates spike, capital investment, or private borrowing as we know it, private business borrowing, houses, what happens there? This is 2 miles and crashes. And what happens? This is the scary one. As the dollar collapses, you're going to have Japan unloading treasuries. You're going to have Spain, who has UK having treasuries. They'll all start unloading treasuries, getting out while they can, because it's going to spike. Something else suddenly lights up. What am I talking about here? Problem suddenly shows up. Yeah. Overheating would be at Y max, full employment. Come on, folks. Yeah. Interest rates suddenly are rising very high. Part of the American government is going to. Why? But what you have here is suddenly funding the deficits becomes very expensive. Remember, the Uncle Sam is paying interest on government bonds, and we've been very lucky. Interest rates have been historically very low, almost 0%. So this is why we can run these big deficits, 12% of GDP. As interest rates rise, suddenly Uncle Sam cannot afford to pay interest. So on treasuries is too high. Sustainability comes sooner. Are you with me so far? You can't roll it over. So that's the big one. And suddenly, as interest payments skyrocket, deficit. This is the scary one. Please note what is in the background. The assumption here, folks, is that when this happens and the sky turns dark, global capital is going to run to some other place. What I'm trying to tell you is case two here. Case two, the same thing. Case two, US is now the only safe haven, is now and still the only safe. So now tell me what might happen. The Chinese stop investing in the US. What? So in this case here, as interest rates rise, money, but let's say in this situation, the world is still in darkness. Europe is still having problems. China is still groping around. India is with Modi, you know, one step forward, one step back, once, trying. Africa has been out of the picture. No one talks about Australia, New Zealand. So say that haven, what would happen here the day after China pulls out? Any guesses? Think about 9/11. Think about 2008. Think about the Soros story. Yes, yes. So what you have here is case two. On day one, China Xi Jinping says goodbye, America. No more Chimerica. And massive emotional divorce. We are divorced. Wham. And everybody is freaking out all over the planet. What happened on the second day? If we were still the only safe haven, whoa, massive capital inflow. Some of you are going, Langdana, you're crazy. Some of you are going, we might be able to pull it off. I don't know. So here it is. So could it be that perhaps US divorce? To the coming back, probably would restore, and we would not marry, not be Chimerica anymore. So the weird situation is if China divorces the US, when the rest of the world is still in trouble, we may be able to get away with it. If China divorces the US and Europe has woken up, or China has woken up, or India has gotten its act together, or some combination thereof, or Africa comes alive, then we are doomed. Then we'll actually be non-sustainable like we used to be. So those are the two situations. And what's happening here for Singapore, since we are in Singapore, is that for Singapore, there's something called exogenous in macro. You remember what is that? So Singapore's economy really can't really plan too much for itself. It's just dealing with external responses. Much of Singapore's macro is dealing with shocks coming from outside. Hong Kong, US-China hassles, whatever the global drama might be. So Singapore is dealing with exogenous shocks, and what Singapore has is safe. Singapore has something called safe haven, and that, please understand, people ask me, Singaporean, the newspapers, they ask me, so what is that? So this thing is, you have a safe haven status, but I don't think you realize in Singapore what a big deal that is. China can do whatever it likes and grow as it wants and have 5G. It can have 6G. It can have 8G. But it cannot build safe haven status. Its safe haven status, again, is like global currency. It's bestowed on you by the rest of the world. No matter how big and powerful you are, you can't of tranquility in a sea of global storms. So your slogan should bring smart minds here, be safe here. This is the safe haven. It really is the safe haven. It should be marketed. Let these guys bash each other around and let them push each other's curves back and forth. You guys become And when there are storms all around, the capital will come here and be fine. And thank you for being here today. Thank you. Okay, questions? Okay, yeah, so please note, thank you. Please note, China has been doing that. Earlier this year and late last year, China has been cutting back on treasuries. So what's happened is China's only buying the treasuries. It's unloaded to be capital neutral. Russia, Putin's Russia, last year from March through May, Russia unloaded 81 billion. No one didn't even make the news. So Putin basically said, I'm done. You know, he's supposed to be friends, right, with our guy. Anyway, 81 billion he dumped. And so supply of loanable funds shut out, and we went, remember right, 0.9. So not that big a deal, but 81 billion. So they have stopped completely. Germany has not lent a single cent since George W. Bush's time. And I don't blame them, because the Germans told us to, you heard my story. So Germans had tons of gold. They said, can we park your gold in Fort Knox? You know, very safe. Hello. And George W. Bush said, yeah. So they parked it in Fort Knox. And this is not a conspiracy theory. You can check. And so then later on, Germans said, you know what? Oh, we'd like the gold back. At which point, Dick Cheney, the George W. Bush said, talk to Dick. And Dick Cheney said, we spent it. We'll get, you know what, we've had it. We have had it with you. So kind of happening, but it's happening in bits and pieces without drama. No, that's the beauty. That's the beauty. And the danger, because it kind of encourages complacency. You know, people don't realize that this is the lucky streak here. You know, we've dodged so many bullets. There are actually people, contenders for president, who have plans based on just cranking out more money, like the quantitative easing we did, and yeah, run deficits. You know, there's no limit. Look, nothing happens. It's theory. It's modern. There's nothing monetary, and it's not a theory. You know, it's just seriously. Sometimes I feel we're in a twilight zone, macro twilight zone. What else? Who's still active? He's still with us though, right? He's still alive, right? Are you not allowed to talk to him? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. So I'm sorry, guys. Rapidly. Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope all of you streaming caught that. Non-sustainable. This would be the scenario. That would be the doomsday scenario. And again, you know, just this topic, you know, sending it back would have really inconceivable go. You know, I'll never forget walking to lunch here. So I was going. How do you? Wow. Anyway, you know what I mean. That's the World Trade Center kind of thing. So I was walking there for at lunch, and I'll never forget. This is many years ago, the early years, like 15 years ago. I was walking with one of my Chinese executive MBAs, a guy from Boeing actually, and he said, Professor, this whole rolling around of money, recycling of money, this thing would only work as long as the U.S. remains a safe haven. if the safe haven status goes, that whole chapter 3 from your book blows apart, right? And I looked at him like, he had said the most obvious thing. I said, yeah, but what, that'll never go. At that time, we had taken the safe haven status for granted. It was like if the sky, is never going to fall on our heads, it's just given. But now every time there's a shenanigan in Washington, with every crazy tweet, with every revelation, you're thinking, oh man, just, it sounds perverse, but as long as the rest of the world is in darkness, we are going to be dodging a bullet. If you guys wake up, all the lights come on, we have a problem at home. So, but I'll never forget that. I looked at the guy like it was the most commonsensical statement. Yeah, of course it'll safe haven. Not anymore. Now you're happy for it every year, every month. So I'll never forget that. Yeah, so there's a great question. So China is left with a very strong currency. The Chinese yuan here appreciates significantly. Remember, when you say a dollar weakens, it means the Chinese currency gets strong. Now, this temper tantrum or macro nuclear happens at a time China doesn't care that it can't sell to the US. But otherwise, China is going to be inflicting some severe pain on itself. Remember, now here's an important comment, folks. A country's exports, since you asked, are some function of the exchange rate and Y star. Y star is foreign income, foreign GDP. Okay, so this is what drives China's exports. America, exchange rates are the be all and end all of exports. Exchange rates get strong, go down. Exchange rates get strong, your exports get expensive. Exchange rates are weak for your exports. You have to understand this. Exchange rates is only number 2. This is the big one. It doesn't really matter exchange rates. In other words, if I'm America or this is Singapore and Y star means foreign, China's economy. If China goes into recession, that means Y star falls. No matter what the exchange rate is, your exports will fall. So if Europe wakes up for Singapore, Europe wakes up and Y star goes up, it doesn't matter if the Sing dollar has appreciated or depreciated. Stuff will be sold. So this guy dominates. You have to understand that. Y star is, if you're looking at elasticities, remember from your class, or parameters before that, this one's got a big number before it. This one's got a tiny number before it. So you have to store in mind it's all about Y star. And what's happening with Singapore right now, two big problems with Singapore's economy. One is, of course, the uncertainty with the trade war, but it's China slowing down. China is Singapore's biggest trading partner, and China is buying less and less and less. China's infrastructure has slowed down, and all these supply chains with China. So that's a big draw, a negative draw on China. Yeah, but those Australia, South Africa, countries like that who are exporting copper and minerals to China, they got hammered when the Chinese economy slowed down. So when emerging economies slow down, infrastructure spending slows down and mineral exporters get hammered. The point here is that China is maturing. When countries mature, their rates of growth slow down. For the, you know, 5% would be disastrous, but they're getting there. China is getting more and more. As you mature, you slow down. So the world hasn't yet understood that China's basic growth rate may be lower. And the problem is, once you've done the infrastructure spending, which China has done, that's the low-hanging fruit as we discussed in class. China can build roads, highways, high-speed trains. India, not so fast because it's a democracy. You can't just destroy. China has done that, and it has done fruit. Now this is Act Two. Innovation, hard part. Their brains against your, their brains against their brains. Should you collaborate? How much should you not? So this is the hard part. In 5G, because 5G is infrastructure. In the US, you can't put devices in street lamps and people's houses and so on. You know, so that's China. Anything else, folks? Yeah. So what was the first part? Oh, dodge the bullet. Yeah. 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 No. 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 Not at all. Well, the thing is, you know, you can be a safe haven, but the thing is, prior to the subprime crisis, there were other options. So when we had that 5% number, you could have foreigners would have said, you know, the heck with this. Let's go to Germany. Go to actually bonds. Yeah. Options back then of large countries that could absorb the capital. Suddenly those options disappeared. You know, so yes, US is still a safe haven, but there is no plan B. You know, you're stuck. So seriously, in 2010, as I was looking at Starbucks, I was thinking, seriously, where will I park my money now? You know, I mean, this is everything is crazy. Just stay in dollars. You know, so there are no options. And we look around today, Brexit, you got the Brexit mess, and in South Korea, where did that come? Suddenly those having it? You know, Trump, of course, is there every day. Uh, um, isn't quiet, right? Well, no, the Kashmir thing. Sorry. So this they well, not for Xi Jinping, for Trump, probably. You know, as long as he tweets and doesn't do anything, I'm okay. Just put him, give him a phone and just you know. But the thing is, once the tweets become policy, then that gets annoying. But yeah, turmoil is good. You know, his base stolen jobs. Foreigners have stolen jobs when we haven't. It's but when you say unwinding, you don't mean unwinding the quantitative easing. You don't mean that unwinding. Okay. Oh no, no, no. And the stock market obliges. You know, the market goes up and down with each tweet. So now today, when he wants to bring down this bubble, makes a bad tweet. The market corrects. Um, yeah, I'm going first airborne. Market goes down 500 points. Okay, the bubble's gone. Then it's gone down too much. Then just say, I think the trade was over. Market goes up. It's amazing. People like run around from corner to corner. The volume. If you look at the volume, the smart money. By the way, trillions have been sitting out. The smart money has been out. All my executives, not all, many of them who are money managers are saying the big money is sitting. So the number of people running small. Just throw that away. Store that away. Then you can thank me later on in an email. On gold, I'm 2-3 years ago, I said gold is a good thing. So those of you who listen to me, please, you can thank me anytime afterwards. And it's kind of funny, you know. So a reporter called me up and said, "So, Professor, I heard you've increased your gold holdings." I said, "Okay, I want to be clear. I went from 7 gold coins to 9 gold coins. Just be careful what you out there. Langdana does not have a whole room with bricks, 9 gold coins. Just don't want any ideas. No, the thing is, you know what's interesting? He asked a question about when the Chinese currency fell a bit. Please note, folks, what People's Bank of China has historically done. Even I remember way back when, remember they were 0.24 to $1 for many, many years. Remember that? Remember that? Just say yes so I can go on. Don't lose power, guys. And so when they let that peg go, they don't, China doesn't just let it go. China, which way the currency is actually going, is capital coming in or running out. So they're very careful. So when you see like a weird movement in Chinese yuan, it goes back the next day. It's like they're opening the doors to see, are people running out or people coming in? You know, is capital running out? Is capital coming in? So it's always good to test. And actually Singapore, by the way, sent a team, oh, sorry, People's Bank of China sent a team to Singapore for 2 years and just be here and study how Singapore manages its currency and its basket of currencies. Yeah. Langdana's gold holdings, I might buy one more coin tonight. I'm like an evil Dr. No investor. Look, you know, liquidity is an issue. Leave it for your kids, but at least I can't imagine global turmoil, and gold loves turmoil. And the thing is, if the Chinese and the Indians are stressed, gold goes up. Indians and Chinese love gold. And the weird thing is, there is no gold in India. All Indian gold comes from outside. Did you know that? You know, Indians aren't that stressed. And Chinese are stressed. Okay, guys. Okay, thank you again for being here. And again, welcome to the Powerhouse. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.